The distress beacon pierced through the cosmic silence like a knife through butter. Its desperate pulse echoed across 17 star systems, reaching every civilized world within range. The message was simple, universal, and terrifying. Emergency, ship failing, life support critical. Any vessel, please respond. Captain Zara Chen stood on the bridge of the human cargo freighter, Iron Will, her weathered hands gripping the command console. Her crew of 12 humans watched the holographic display showing the distress signal's origin. A luxury cruise liner from the Etherian Federation. Stranded in the Crimson Nebula. The Crimson Nebula was a place most species avoided. Its violent radiation storms, unpredictable gravity wells, and electromagnetic interference made it a graveyard for ships. The locals called it the Death Zone. Humans had another name for it: Tuesday's Commute. "Captain, we're picking up chatter from other vessels," reported Communications Officer Marcus Torres. His fingers danced across the holographic interface, pulling up multiple transmission streams. "The Zelathi merchant convoy is declining to respond. They say the radiation levels would fry their ship systems within minutes." Chen nodded, unsurprised. The Zelathi were silicon-based life forms who couldn't handle intense radiation. Their ships were marvels of efficiency, but fragile as glass in hostile environments. "What about the Korvax patrol fleet?" she asked. "Negative, Captain. They're citing Regulation 47B. No military vessel can enter a Class 9 hazard zone without Council approval." "That could take weeks." First Officer Sarah Okafor snorted from her station. "Weeks? Those poor souls have maybe 6 hours of air left." Judging by these readings, the bridge fell silent as more responses trickled in. The graceful Altarian ships worried about their delicate navigation systems. The heavily armored Borthak freighters claimed their crews couldn't survive the gravitational stress. One by one, every species in range found a reason to turn away. "Cowards," muttered Chief Engineer Dmitry Volkov from his station. The Russian's thick accent colored his disgust. "They build pretty ships for pretty space. When real danger comes, they hide." Chen studied the data streaming across her screen. The cruise liner, designated Celestial Dream, carried over 3,000 passengers. Etherians mostly, those delicate beings of light and energy who lived in crystalline bodies. They were artists, philosophers, and dreamers. They were also completely helpless in an emergency. "Torres, open a wideband channel," Chen commanded. "Let's see who else is out there." The communication system crackled to life, picking up fragments of discussion between various ships. The universal translator converted the babble of alien languages into something comprehensible. "Radiation levels exceed safety parameters by 400%. Gravity fluctuations would tear our hull apart. Insurance doesn't cover acts of nebula." Chen's jaw tightened. She'd seen this before. The galaxy was full of species that had evolved in comfortable environments. They built civilizations in safe corners of space, developed technology that worked perfectly in ideal conditions, and congratulated themselves on their advancement. But when the universe showed its teeth, they scattered like leaves. Humans were different. Earth had tried to kill them from day one. Hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, ice ages. Their homeworld was a death trap that had forged them in its fires. They'd evolved on a planet where the weather could kill you, the wildlife wanted to eat you, and even the plants were plotting your demise. By the time humans reached space, they looked at the impossible dangers other species feared and shrugged. "Captain," Okafor said quietly, "I'm running simulations. If we push the engines and reroute power from non-essential systems, we could reach them in 4 hours. But," she hesitated, "we'd be flying blind through radiation that would give a Zelathi cancer just thinking about it. The gravity wells could tear us apart if we miscalculate. And if anything goes wrong, no one's coming to save us." Chen turned to face her crew. These weren't soldiers or heroes. They were cargo haulers, making routine runs between human colonies. Their ship was built tough because humans built everything tough. But it wasn't designed for rescue operations in one of the galaxy's deadliest regions. "I need honesty," she said. "This isn't an order. If we do this, we do it together. Volkov, can the Iron Will take it? The engineer pulled up his diagnostics. The hull is reinforced titanium steel. She was built in the Jupiter shipyards, designed to handle the radiation near the gas giant. The engines are overbuilt by galactic standards. We call it human engineering. Everyone else calls it insane. He grinned. She'll hold. Medical? Chen looked at Dr. James Park. The ship's physician adjusted his glasses, a habit from Earth he'd never shaken. I've got radiation treatment supplies for the crew. The Etherians. I've never treated crystalline beings, but I've downloaded their medical databases. Their bodies are actually more resilient than they look. If we can get them out of immediate danger, I can stabilize them. Navigation? Chen turned to Lieutenant Anna Petrov. The young navigator was already working her console. The Crimson Nebula is tricky, but not impossible. The gravity wells follow a pattern. Chaotic, but a pattern nonetheless. I've been studying this region since Academy. Always wondered if I'd get a chance to test my theories. Her eyes gleamed with the particular madness that made humans terrifying to other species. Where others saw death, she saw a challenge. One by one, Chen pulled her crew. The cargo handlers volunteered to clear the bay for refugees. The cook mentioned he'd been hoarding extra supplies, just in case. The maintenance team was already discussing modifications to boost shield efficiency. Not one person hesitated. This was humanity's secret weapon, Chen reflected. Not superior technology or physical strength, but this, the inability to accept impossible. When the universe said, "You can't," humans said, "Watch me." Torres, signal the celestial dream. Tell them help is coming. She settled into her command chair. And broadcast on all channels. Let everyone hear this. Torres nodded and opened the channel. Chen's voice rang out across the sector, reaching every ship that had turned away. This is Captain Zara Chen of the human freighter Iron Will. We have received the Celestial Dream's distress call. We are responding, ETA 4 hours, to any vessel monitoring this channel. We could use backup, but we're not waiting for it. Iron Will out. The response was immediate. Shocked silence from most channels, then a burst of activity. Iron Will, this is Zalathi Command. You can't be serious. The radiation alone. Chen cut them off. Zalathi Command, with respect, we've made our decision. You're welcome to join us or get out of our way. She turned to her helm officer. Mr. Nakamura, set course for the Crimson Nebula. Maximum sustainable speed. Aye, Captain. Course laid in. Hiroshi Nakamura's fingers flew across his console. The Iron Will's engines roared to life, the sound vibrating through the deck plates. It was a sound other species found alarming. Too loud, too powerful, too aggressive. To human ears, it sounded like coming home. As the freighter turned toward the nebula, Chen noticed something on her sensor display. A small signature, following in their wake. Then another. And another. Captain, Torres said, surprise in his voice. We've got company. 3. No. 5 human ships changing course to follow us. The mining vessel Rockbreaker, the survey ship Carl Sagan, the courier Lightning Runner, and, is that a garbage scow? That's the Trash Panda, Captain, Okafor confirmed, unable to hide her grin. Captain Rodriguez runs salvage operations out of Haven Station. His crew's all ex-military. More signals appeared. A human colony ship diverted from its route. A scientific research vessel abandoned its mission. A pair of independent traders formed up on their flanks. Within minutes, 15 human ships had answered the call. None of them were warships. None of them were designed for rescue operations. They were teachers, traders, miners, and explorers flying ships held together by stubbornness and creative engineering. To the rest of the galaxy, it looked like madness. To humans, it looked like Tuesday. The Etherian ambassador to the Galactic Council watched the sensor feeds from his office on Central Station. His crystalline form flickered with colors that indicated deep confusion. an emotion he'd felt often since humans had joined the galactic community 50 years ago. "They're actually going," he transmitted to his aide. "A cargo freighter and a collection of civilian vessels are attempting what our best military ships won't dare." His aide's form pulsed with worry. "Should we warn them? The humans may not fully understand the danger." The ambassador considered this. He'd spent years studying humans, trying to comprehend their seemingly irrational behavior. They claimed their world was a death world, though the ambassador had seen the tourism videos: blue skies, green forests, vast oceans. It looked peaceful. He didn't understand that those peaceful scenes were the exception, not the rule. He'd never experienced a Category 5 hurricane, never felt the earth shake beneath him, never watched a wall of water erase a coastline. No, he decided. Let them try. When they fail, perhaps they'll finally learn caution. But as he watched the convoy of human ships enter the Crimson Nebula, something nagged at him. The humans weren't approaching cautiously. They weren't even following standard hazard protocols. They were accelerating. Back on the Iron Will, the crew prepared for hell. The radiation alarms started screaming the moment they crossed the nebula's boundary. The hull groaned as gravitational forces tried to tear the ship apart. The view screen showed a nightmare of swirling red clouds punctuated by lightning that could vaporize a small moon. "Radiation levels climbing," Volkov reported. "Shields holding at 80%. 75. 70. Captain, we're taking a beating. Maintain course," Chen ordered. "Divert power from crew quarters to shields. We can live without comfort for a few hours." The ship shuddered as a gravity well caught them, trying to drag them into its crushing embrace. Nakamura's hands never stopped moving, playing the helm controls like a musical instrument. He'd learned to fly in Earth's solar system, dodging asteroids and Jupiter's radiation. This was just a different kind of dance. "Contact," Petrov announced. "I've got the Celestial Dream on sensors. They're caught in a gravitational eddy, spinning out of control. Life signs are weak but present." Through the static-filled view screen, they could see the cruise liner. It was beautiful even in distress. A crystal palace among the stars, its hull reflecting the nebula's deadly light. It was also coming apart. Chunks of the outer hull had already been torn away, and the ship spun helplessly in the grip of forces it was never designed to withstand. "How do we get them out?" Okafor asked. Chen studied the situation. The gravity well was too strong for the Celestial Dream's engines. But the Iron Will had been built with human paranoia. They'd installed engines that could, in theory, tow a small asteroid. Everyone had called it overkill. Chen had called it insurance. "We go in," she decided. "Get close enough to establish a hard dock. Transfer everyone we can to our ship. Then tow them clear." "Captain," Volkov warned, "if we get that close to the gravity well, then we'd better not stay long. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for emergency docking procedures. Things are about to get bumpy." The Iron Will dove toward the stricken cruise liner. The radiation climbed higher. The gravitational forces tried to tear both ships apart. The human convoy followed, each ship pushing beyond its limits, their crews performing miracles with duct tape and determination. In the cruise liner's observation lounge, 3,000 Etherians waited for death. Their crystalline bodies, so beautiful and perfect in normal space, were cracking under the stress. Their leader, a being called Harmonious Thought, tried to maintain calm. "Be at peace," he transmitted to his people. "We have lived good lives. We have created beauty. If this is our end, let us face it with dignity." Then the hull shook with a different kind of impact. Not the random violence of the nebula, but the purposeful clang of docking clamps. A human voice crackled through their communication system, rough with static but unmistakably alive. "Celestial Dream, this is Iron Will. Prepare for immediate evacuation. We're getting you out of here." Harmonious Thought felt something he'd never experienced before: hope delivered by madness. The humans had come. The humans, who everyone said were reckless, primitive, and dangerous, had come when no one else would. The evacuation was chaos. Human crew members in radiation suits that looked like armor stormed through the cruise liner's corridors. They carried Etherians who couldn't walk, guided others to safety, and somehow maintained order in the madness. Dr. Park set up a triage station in the Iron Will's cargo bay, treating crystalline beings with a combination of their medicine and human improvisation. "Your medical database says you need resonance therapy," he told one injured Etherian. "I don't have the right equipment, but..." He pulled out a device. "This is a sonic cleaner we use for engine parts. If I modify the frequency..." The Etherians' cracks began to heal. All around them, human ingenuity met alien crisis. When the Celestial Dream's gravity compensators failed, making it impossible for Etherians to move in the human ship's heavier gravity, the cargo handlers created makeshift sleds. When the cruise liner's computer core began failing, preventing a complete passenger manifest, the human crew formed human chains. Physically searching every room, Captain Chen coordinated from the bridge, watching their time disappear. The radiation was cooking their shields. The gravity well was getting stronger, but humans had a word for accepting defeat. They'd just never learned how to pronounce it. "Last shuttle incoming," Torres reported. "All 3,000 passengers accounted for. Mr. Nakamura, get us out of here." The pilot's response was to push the engines beyond their red line. The Iron Will screamed in protest but began to move. Behind them, still attached by docking clamps and tow cables, the Celestial Dream followed. The gravity well fought to keep its prize, but human engineering and human stubbornness proved stronger. They burst free of the gravity well just as the shields hit critical. The convoy of human ships surrounded them, each taking a share of the refugees, each pushing their own limits to save strangers who weren't even their own species. As they cleared the worst of the nebula, Chen finally allowed herself to breathe. They'd done it. They'd done the impossible. And judging by the chatter on the communication channels, the galaxy had noticed. "Iron Will," came a transmission from the Korvax patrol fleet. "This is Admiral Vex. How did you do that?" Chen looked around her bridge at her exhausted, radiation-sick, triumphant crew. "How did you explain humanity to a galaxy that had never needed to be insane to survive?" "Admiral," she replied. "Where we come from, this was easy. You should see us on a bad day." The rescue of the Celestial Dream would go down in galactic history. Not because it was perfectly executed. It wasn't. Not because it followed protocols. It hadn't. But because it was the day the galaxy learned that humans had a different definition of impossible, and that was just the beginning. The Galactic Council's emergency session had been called within hours of the Crimson Nebula rescue. Representatives from 47 species gathered in the Great Chamber on Central Station. There forms a rainbow of evolution's possibilities. Crystalline Etherians floated next to gaseous Vorthan clouds. Silicon-based Zelathi sat beside carbon-based Korvax, and in their designated section, 3 humans looked remarkably out of place. Too solid. Too simple. Too mundane. Ambassador Diana Reeves represented Earth's government. She was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and laugh lines, dressed in a simple black suit that looked primitive compared to the ornate garments of other ambassadors. Beside her sat Captain Chen, still in her scorched captain's uniform, and Dr. Park, whose medical coat bore stains from treating 3,000 refugees. Council Prime Xerxes called for order. The ancient Altarian's melodious voice filled the chamber. "We gather to discuss the unprecedented events in the Crimson Nebula. The human vessel's successful rescue of the Celestial Dream has raised questions. Chen almost laughed. The galaxy's greatest minds were baffled because humans had done what needed doing. Ambassador Vorthan 12, a swirling cloud of sentient gas, spoke first. "The human action, while admirable in outcome, represents a dangerous precedent. They ignored 17 safety protocols, violated 6 interstellar navigation laws, and exposed their crews to radiation levels that should have killed them instantly. And yet," Ambassador Reeves said calmly, 3,000 lives were saved. Lives that would have been lost while the Council debated protocol. "The ends do not justify the means," insisted the Zelathi representative, his crystalline form pulsing with agitation. "What message does this send? That any species can ignore regulations when they feel justified?" A murmur rippled through the chamber. Many species had evolved in stable, predictable environments. They'd built their civilizations on order, logic, and careful planning. The human approach, throwing themselves into danger on the chance they might help, was antithetical to everything they believed. Harmonious Thought, the Etherian leader Chen had rescued, requested permission to speak. His form still showed the cracks from his ordeal, but they were healing. "If I may address the council." His transmitted thoughts reached everyone present. "I wish to share what I witnessed." The council granted permission, and Harmonious Thought moved to the center of the chamber. "My people pride ourselves on philosophy, on understanding the universe through logic and beauty. When our ship was dying, I prepared my people for a dignified end. We made peace with the universe's decision." He paused, his form shifting through colors of memory. Then the humans came. He projected his memories for all to see. The iron will, appearing through radiation that should have destroyed it. Humans in makeshift radiation suits rushing through corridors. Doctor, park jury-rigging medical equipment to save Etherian lives. They didn't come because it was logical. They didn't come because protocol demanded it. They came because we called for help, and they couldn't imagine not answering. His form pulsed with an emotion the Etherians rarely displayed. Passion. Yes, they broke rules. Yes, they took insane risks. But 3,000 of my people live because humans don't understand the word impossible. The chamber fell silent. Then the Borthak ambassador, whose species prided themselves on strength, spoke. "This is all very touching, but it doesn't address the core issue. The human's recklessness could inspire others to similar foolishness. What happens when someone attempts a rescue beyond their capabilities and fails?" Ambassador Reeves stood. At 5'6", she was dwarfed by many of the alien representatives, but she commanded attention nonetheless. "May I share something with the council?" she asked. "A story from Earth. 200 years ago, before we reached the stars, a group of human explorers attempted to reach Earth's southernmost point, what we call Antarctica. Their ship was crushed by ice, leaving them stranded in the most hostile environment on our planet. Temperatures that would flash freeze water, winds that could flay skin from bone, and no hope of rescue. She had their attention now. Even species that had studied Earth didn't truly understand what humans considered normal. By every logical measure, they should have died. Instead, their leader and 5 volunteers sailed a small boat 800 miles through the worst seas on Earth to get help. It took them 16 days. When asked why he would attempt something so impossible, the leader said, "Because my men were counting on me." She looked around the chamber. That expedition failed in its original goal. But every human child learns that story. Not as a cautionary tale, but as inspiration. Because the 28 men that leader saved lived to explore again. That's precisely our concern. The Vorthan ambassador swirled agitatedly. "You celebrate dangerous behavior. We celebrate courage," Reeves corrected. "Every species here evolved to fit their environment. The Zelathi, in their stable crystal caverns. The Altarians, on their paradise world. The Vorthans in their peaceful gas clouds. Humans evolved on a world that tried to kill us every day. We didn't develop courage because we wanted to. We developed it because the alternative was extinction." Captain Chen requested permission to speak. "I've traveled this galaxy for 20 years. I've seen the wonders every species has created. Cities that float on clouds. Art that exists in dimensions I can't fully perceive. Technology that makes our best efforts look like stone tools. But I've also noticed something. You've made the galaxy safe. Perhaps too safe." She pulled up her ship's logs on the chamber's display system. "In the last 50 years, how many colony ships have been lost because their navigation systems couldn't handle unexpected cosmic phenomena? How many research expeditions have failed because the researchers couldn't adapt when conditions changed? You've built a civilization that works perfectly when everything goes according to plan. But the universe doesn't care about our plans. Dr. Park stood beside them. When I was treating the Etherian refugees, I had to improvise. Their medical database was comprehensive, but it assumed access to specialized equipment. So I used what I had: a sonic cleaner, modified emergency foam, even the harmonics from our engine core. Was it ideal? No. Did it work? Yes. Because humans learned long ago that perfect is the enemy of good enough. The debate continued for hours. Some species argued for stricter regulations to prevent future human recklessness. Others, particularly those whose members had been on the Celestial Dream, argued that perhaps the galaxy needed a little human madness. Finally, Elder Korvac of the Dimensional Weavers spoke. Their species was among the oldest in the galaxy. Beings of pure energy who existed partially in alternate realities. I have observed this debate with interest across multiple probability streams. In timelines where humanity is restricted, catastrophes accumulate. Small ones at first. Ships lost that might have been saved. Colonies that fail when standard procedures prove insufficient. But these compound. Without someone willing to attempt the impossible, the possible itself begins to shrink. They turned their attention to the human delegation. Humanity concerns us not because you are reckless, but because you remind us of what we've lost. Every species here once had your spark. We had to leave our homeworlds and reach the stars. But comfort and safety have made us forget that sometimes the greatest risk is taking no risk at all. The vote, when it came, was closer than expected. By a narrow margin, the Council voted not to restrict human rescue operations. But they did mandate something else: joint training exercises. If humans were going to keep attempting the impossible, other species wanted to learn how they did it, which was how, 3 months later, Captain Chen found herself aboard a state-of-the-art Altarian training vessel, trying to explain human emergency procedures to a mixed-species crew. All right, she addressed the assembled trainees. Let's start with basics. Who can tell me the first rule of emergency response? 7. Fiveling. Fiveling, a young zealothy, raised a crystalline appendage. Assess the situation and follow established protocols. Wrong. Chen's response shocked them. The first rule is that people are dying while you're assessing. Sometimes, you have to move first and plan on the fly. An Altarian officer looked appalled. But that could make things worse. Could, Chen agreed. But definitely will make things worse, is doing nothing. Let me show you something. She pulled up a holographic scenario. A damaged station venting atmosphere. Standard protocol says seal the breach from outside. Minimize structural damage. Makes sense. Right? Except, she highlighted a section. There are people in that compartment. By the time you suit up and get outside, they're dead. So what do? The trainees looked at each other uncertainly. Finally, a Korvax engineer raised a tentacle. Could you seal it from inside? Now you're thinking like a human, Chen grinned. It's dangerous. Maybe suicidal. But if you move fast enough, you might save lives. The trick is calculating acceptable risk. Over the following weeks, Chen and other human instructors introduced concepts that gave other species nightmares. Emergency repairs using improvised materials. Navigation by instinct when instruments failed. Medical procedures that would make textbook authors weep. And through it all, one lesson. When lives are on the line, perfect is the enemy of good enough. The real test came sooner than anyone expected. The distress call came from the Helix Nebula, where a scientific station studying quantum phenomena had suffered a cascade failure. The station was phasing in and out of reality. One moment there, the next scattered across dimensions. 30 researchers from 6 species were trapped aboard. The rescue fleet that assembled was unlike anything the galaxy had seen. Altarian ships with their perfect engineering. Korvax vessels with their unmatched firepower. Zealothy craft with their precision instruments. And human ships with their duct tape and determination. Chen commanded the joint task force from the bridge of the Iron Will, now refitted with alien technology but still essentially the tough freighter that had charged into the Crimson Nebula. Around her, a mixed-species crew worked with controlled chaos. "Station is phasing again," reported the Etherean sensor operator. "We have maybe 90 seconds before it shifts out of our reality. All ships, this is Chen, pattern Delta 7, move, move, move." The fleet scattered into a formation that would have failed any tactical assessment. Ships positioned themselves not for efficiency but for opportunity. When the station phased back, someone would be close enough to grab it. The Zealothi navigator on Chen's bridge watched the human helm officer with fascination. "How do you know where to position us?" "The phase patterns are random." Lieutenant Nakamura never took his eyes off his console. "Not random, chaotic. There's a difference. You just have to feel the rhythm." "Feel?" The Zealothi was mystified. "You're navigating by emotion?" "Intuition," Chen corrected. "Humans process pattern recognition subconsciously. We call it gut instinct. Your conscious mind can't calculate fast enough, so you trust the part of your brain that evolved dodging predators." The station phased back into reality 40 meters from the Iron Will's position. Nakamura had already been moving. "Gotcha," he muttered, firing the newly installed gravity anchors. The technology was Altarian, the power source Korvax, but the timing was purely human. "Anchors holding," Volkov reported. "But the station's phase generator is going critical. We've got minutes before it either explodes or shifts permanently into another dimension." Chen opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, we're going in. Standard rescue protocols are out the window. That station won't exist long enough. I need volunteers for emergency boarding." The response surprised even her. Not just humans volunteered, but Korvax Marines, Altarian engineers, even a team of Zealothi medics stepped forward. "Guess your lessons stuck," Okafor murmured. The boarding was barely controlled catastrophe. The station's corridors kept shifting, walls becoming floors, gravity reversing without warning. The mixed-species rescue teams had to adapt constantly. A human would grab a falling Etherean. A Korvax would smash through a suddenly solid wall. Zealothi precision would guide them through maze-like passages that changed every second. In the station's core, they found the research team huddled in a reinforced compartment, the only stable point in the chaos. Among them was Dr. Silex, a Vorthan whose gaseous form was barely holding together in the dimensional flux. "We thought we were dead," Silex transmitted weakly. "The phase calculations showed no possible rescue scenario." "Yeah. Well," the human rescue leader grinned. "We don't much care for calculations when lives are at stake. Can you move?" "The dimensional stress," Silex began. "Doc, simple question. If we carry you, will you survive?" "Possibly, but good enough. Thompson, get the containment unit. Everyone else, we're leaving. Now." The evacuation was pure human madness adapted by alien precision. Korvax strength carried those who couldn't walk. Altarian engineers jury-rigged dimensional stabilizers from stolen station components. Zealothi medics performed triage while running through corridors that didn't strictly exist. And humans did what humans did best. They made it work through sheer stubborn refusal to accept failure. They made it out with 17 seconds to spare. The station completed its phase shift, disappearing into whatever dimension it now called home. But 30 researchers from 6 species were safe aboard the rescue fleet. Back on Central Station, the after-action review was revealing. By every metric, the rescue should have failed. The planning was insufficient, the risks enormous, the execution chaotic. But it had worked because the mixed crews had learned to balance each other. Alien precision, guiding human instinct. Human adaptability, compensating for alien inflexibility. Ambassador Reeves met with Chen after the review. "You know what you've started, don't you?" Chen poured herself a coffee. "Another human habit that both fascinated and horrified other species. We've given them permission to be imperfect? 1. IT. More than that. You've reminded them why they reached the stars in the first place. Every species had to take insane risks to leave their homeworlds. they'd just forgotten. Over the following months, something changed in the galactic community. Ships began carrying emergency supplies that weren't strictly necessary. Crews started training for scenarios outside their operating parameters. The phrase, "What would a human do?" became shorthand for creative problem-solving. Not everyone approved. The Regulatory Council filed 17 complaints about declining safety standards. The Insurance Guild warned of catastrophic risk assessment failures. But when the next crisis came, a colony ship caught in a temporal anomaly, a mining station collapsing into an artificial black hole, a first contact gone wrong in spectacular fashion. Mixed crews of humans and aliens were ready. They didn't always succeed. Sometimes the universe won. But they tried. And in trying, they saved lives that would have been written off as acceptable losses. The real change became apparent during the annual Galactic Achievement Awards. For 50 years, humans had been notable mainly for their absence, their contributions considered too crude for recognition. This year was different. For extraordinary achievement in emergency response, Council Prime Xerxes announced, the award goes to the Combined Response Fleet. Helix Nebula Incident. As representatives from multiple species stood to accept the award together, Chen noticed something. The Altarian captain wore mismatched uniform components. SSARD. Field repairs that hadn't been properly replaced. The Korvax major had a human-style utility belt, packed with improvised tools. The Zelathi doctor carried a medical kit that would have horrified any properly trained physician but had saved 16 lives. They were all a little more human now. And humanity was a little more alien. The galaxy was becoming something new. Still diverse. Still wonderful in its variety. But no longer paralyzed by perfection. After the ceremony, harmonious thought approached Chen. His crystalline form had fully healed. But he bore new patterns. Scars that caught light in interesting ways. Captain, I have a question. When you came for us in the Crimson Nebula, were you afraid? Chen considered lying, giving him the hero's answer. But humans and honesty went hand in hand, especially the uncomfortable kind. Terrified, she admitted. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely hold the controls. But here's the thing about fear. It's just your body telling you to pay attention. The trick is deciding what to do with that attention. And you decided to use it to save us. We decided fear of living with failure was worse than fear of dying while trying. Harmonious thought's form shifted through patterns Chen had learned, meant deep thought. My people have a saying. Perfection in stillness. Beauty in order. I think perhaps we need a new saying. Oh, beauty in chaos, perfection in attempt. Chen smiled. Now you're thinking like a human. Perhaps, the Etherean mused. That's not such a bad thing. The Void Hunters came without warning. One moment, the galaxy was at peace. The next, entire star systems were going dark. No distress calls, no debris fields, just silence, where billions of voices had been. Captain Chen stood in the Emergency Command Center on Central Station, surrounded by the greatest military minds of 47 species. The holographic display showed the expanding zone of darkness. 17 systems gone in 3 days. What do we know? Admiral Vex of the Korvax fleet demanded. Almost nothing, reported Intelligence Chief Mordan, a Zelathi whose crystalline form flickered with distress. The attackers appear from nowhere, envelope entire systems in some kind of energy field, and then, everything inside vanishes. No energy signatures, no quantum traces, nothing. How do you fight something you can't see? Muttered General Thorne of Earth's Defense Force. The debate that followed was predictable. The Altarians wanted to study the phenomenon. The Zelathi insisted on following protocol and evacuating threatened systems. The Korvax proposed massive firepower directed at the void zones. Everyone had a perfect plan that required time they didn't have. Chen watched the display, tracking the pattern of attacks. Something nagged at her. That human instinct that had saved lives in the Crimson Nebula. They're hurting us, she said suddenly. The room fell silent. Ambassador Reeves leaned forward. Explain. Look at the pattern. They're not taking random systems. They're creating a funnel, pushing refugee fleets toward the galactic core. Whatever these things are, they want us concentrated. That's speculation. The Vorthan representative swirled dismissively. We need facts, not human hunches. Before Chen could respond, alarms screamed through the station. The holographic display flashed red as 3 more systems vanished simultaneously. Systems that formed a perfect line. Tightening the noose. Still think it's just a hunch? Chen asked. Elder Korvac materialized in the center of the room, their energy form fluctuating wildly. I have searched probability streams. In every timeline where we follow standard protocols, we lose. The enemy knows our procedures, our reactions. They're counting on us being predictable. Then we need to be unpredictable, General Thorne said. We need to be human. The argument that erupted would have been comical if the situation weren't so dire. Half the room insisted on careful planning and proper protocols. The other half, influenced by months of human thinking, wanted to act immediately. Chen's communicator buzzed. It was Nakamura from the Iron Will. Captain, you need to see this. We've been analyzing the void zones with some non-standard equipment. Non-standard? Remember that dimensional phase detector we cobbled together from the Helix Nebula station? The one that shouldn't work but does? It's picking up something. Chen's heart raced. I'm on my way. 20 minutes later, she stood on the Iron Will's bridge, staring at impossible readings. The void zones weren't empty. They were full, packed with compressed matter and energy, folded into dimensions that shouldn't exist. They're not destroying the systems. Dr. Park breathed. They're stealing them. Packing entire star systems into pocket dimensions. But why? Okafor asked. Chen thought about predators and prey. About traps and hunting. Her childhood on Earth had included camping trips, where her grandfather taught her to track and hunt. One lesson stood out. They're filling their larder, she said quietly. Storing food for later. The bridge crew stared at her. Volkov was the first to speak. Bosez-moi. They're not invaders. They're harvesters. Chen opened a channel to the command center. This is Iron Will. We have critical intelligence. The void zones aren't destroyed. They're compressed into dimensional storage. The void hunters are collecting star systems like a harvest. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Some refused to believe it. Others demanded proof. But Harmonious Thought, who had joined the crisis team, transmitted a pulse of understanding. If Captain Chen is correct, then conventional weapons won't work. How do you fight beings that can fold space itself? The same way you fight any predator, Chen said. You become something they don't expect. You become dangerous prey. The plan that emerged over the next hours was insane by any reasonable standard. It combined human recklessness with alien precision. Earth cunning with galactic technology. It was also their only chance. Let me make sure I understand, Admiral Vex said slowly. You want to intentionally let them capture a star system. But one we've rigged with dimensional destabilizers that will unfold their compression from the inside, while a mixed fleet uses modified phase drives to follow them into whatever dimension they operate from, Chen added. Hit them where they live. That's not a plan, the Altarian commander protested. That's elaborate suicide. No, Elder Korvac interjected. It's human. And right now, human might be what we need. The volunteer list filled faster than anyone expected. Not just humans, but members of every species who'd learned to think beyond their limitations. The bait system was chosen. Kepler 442. A human colony with enough industrial infrastructure to hide the dimensional weapons but few enough inhabitants to evacuate quietly. Captain Rodriguez of the Trash Panda summed up the fleet's attitude. These things think we're sheep. Time to show them some sheep have teeth. The preparation was frantic. Altarian engineers worked alongside human mechanics, building devices that violated 17 laws of physics. Korvac's weapons specialists collaborated with human soldiers, who suggested modifications that made hardened warriors blink. Zelathi scientists partnered with human mad scientists, who treated impossible as a starting point rather than an ending. Chen found herself in overall command of the bait fleet. A collection of ships that shouldn't work together, but did. The Iron Will had been refitted so many times it was more hybrid than human. Around it, 100 vessels prepared for a jump into the unknown. All ships. This is Chen. Final checks. Remember, once we're inside their dimension, we'll have minutes at most. Hit hard, hit fast, and don't stop moving. If your ship starts to phase, get out immediately. We're not here to be heroes. We're here to teach these things that our galaxy bites back. The Void Hunters appeared on schedule. Their ships, if they could be called ships, emerging from folded space, like geometric nightmares. They surrounded Kepler 442 with the same inevitability they'd shown at 17 other systems. Dimensional field forming, reported the Etherean sensor operator. They're beginning compression. Chen watched her displays, waiting. The trick was timing, too early, and the Void Hunters might detect the trap. Too late, and they'd be caught in the compression. Fleet standby, she ordered. On my mark. The star system began to fold. Reality twisted as 3 planets, 2 asteroid belts, and a star were compressed into impossible configurations. The hidden destabilizers activated, but subtly, their effect masked by the chaos of compression. Mark, all ships, jump. 100 ships activated modified phase drive simultaneously, following the quantum wake of the compression. Reality shattered around them as they punched through dimensions, chasing their enemy into their own domain. What they found defied description. The Void Hunters' realm was a vast, hollow space filled with compressed star systems, hundreds of them, arranged like trophies. At the center, beings of pure geometry and malevolent mathematics tended their harvest. Mother of God, someone whispered over comms. Focus. Chen snapped. All ships, execute. Pattern Omega. Make them regret taking our people. The battle that followed couldn't be properly described in 3-dimensional terms. Ships fired weapons that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. The Void Hunters responded with attacks that deleted portions of existence. Human crews performed maneuvers that shouldn't be possible, guided by alien precision that kept them from flying apart. The Iron Will dove straight at the nearest compressed system, firing dimensional anchors designed by a Zalathi scientist who'd learned to think like a human. The anchors hit, and the compression began to unravel. It's working, Park shouted. The system's unfolding. Across the bizarre battlefield, other ships repeated the tactic. Compressed star systems began expanding, their stolen populations returning to normal space. The Void Hunters' perfect order collapsed into chaos, but the enemy adapted quickly. Geometric forms shifted, becoming weapons that sliced through conventional shields like paper. Ships began disappearing, not destroyed, but erased. We're losing too many, Volkov reported. Hull integrity failing. Whatever dimension this is, it doesn't like our matter. Chen made the calculation every commander dreaded. They'd freed 7 systems, but at this rate, the fleet would be gone before they could free them all. Unless, all ships, this is Chen, Convergence Pattern Alpha. We're taking out their center. Captain, Okafor said quietly. That's a one-way trip. Maybe. But if we destabilize their control center, all the compressed systems should unfold at once. Sometimes you have to risk the queen to checkmate the king. The remaining ships formed up, a mixed fleet of species united by desperation and determination. They drove toward the geometric horrors at the realm's center, weapons blazing, shields failing, hope burning brighter than fear. The Void Hunters tried to stop them, but they'd never faced prey like this. Prey that adapted, that learned, that chose death over submission. The human virus of impossible thinking had spread through the galaxy's species, and now it bore fruit in this twisted dimension. Distance to target, 1,000 kilometers, Nakamura reported, his hands steady despite the ship shaking apart around them. All weapons, prepare for simultaneous strike, Chen ordered. Everything we've got. Make it count. The fleet fired as one. Not just conventional weapons but dimensional destabilizers, phase disruptors, and things cobbled together from half-understood principles and wholehearted determination. The barrage hit the Void Hunter's control center, and reality hiccuped. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the compressed systems began unfolding. Not one at a time, but all at once. The Void Hunter's realm convulsed as hundreds of star systems tried to exist in the same space. Now would be a really good time to leave, Chen announced. The retreat was chaos. Ships fled through collapsing dimensions, reality tearing itself apart behind them. Not all made it. The Zelathai medical ship Crystal Hope sacrificed itself to hold a portal open. The Korvax battlecruiser Indomitable used its bulk to shield smaller vessels from dimensional shear. Human and alien crews made split-second decisions, saving who they could. They burst back into normal space near Central Station, alarms screaming, hulls breach, but alive. Behind them, the void zones began releasing their captives. Star systems unfolded across the galaxy, confused but intact. Fleet count, Chen ordered, dreading the answer. 63 ships made it back, Torres reported quietly. We lost 37. The bridge fell silent. Then reports started coming in. The released systems were calling in, billions of beings who'd been trapped in compressed dimensions. They were traumatized, confused, but alive. Captain, the comm officer said, we're receiving a transmission. It's from the Void Hunters. The geometric being that appeared on screen was smaller somehow, diminished. When it spoke, the translation was perfect, suggesting it had learned their languages during the compression. You are not prey, it stated. Prey does not fight. Prey does not sacrifice. Prey does not chase predators into their own realm. What are you? Chen stood, exhausted but unbroken. Behind her, the mixed species bridge crew stood as well. We're the people who answer distress calls, she said simply. All of us. And if you come for our people again, we'll come for you. The geometric form flickered, considering. We will reevaluate. Your galaxy is not what we calculated. No, Ambassador Reeves said, appearing on a secondary screen from the command center. It's not. We're something new. We're what happens when human madness meets alien wisdom. We're unpredictable. The Void Hunter vanished without another word. Long-range sensors showed their remaining forces retreating to whatever dimension they'd come from. They'd learned what the galaxy had learned. Humans were crazy. But their crazy was contagious. And united, that made them unstoppable. The memorial service was held a week later. Representatives from every species gathered to honor those who died, saving the galaxy. The names were read, human and alien together. No distinction made between species. They died as one fleet, one people. Harmonious thought gave the eulogy. They say humans have a word, heroes. It means those who do what's right despite the cost. Today, we are all human. Today, we are all heroes. After the service, Chen found herself on the observation deck with a mixed group of officers. The Altarian captain she'd trained months ago still wore his patched uniform. The Korvax major had added more human tools to his belt. The Zelathi doctor had officially published a paper on improvised medicine in crisis situations. So what now? Someone asked. Chen looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, new threats waited. The universe was vast and full of dangers no one could predict. But also somewhere out there, ships crewed by humans and aliens together patrolled the spaceways, ready to answer the next distress call. Now we rebuild, she said. We learn from what happened. We prepare for next time. And we remember that impossible is just a word. The humans have ruined us, the Altarian captain said, but he was smiling. We used to be a sensible species. Now look at us. Ready to charge into any danger if it means saving lives. Ruined? Dr. Park laughed. Or improved? Before humans, you had civilization. Now you have something more. You have hope, backed by audacity. A distress signal blinked on the communication panel. Without hesitation, officers from 5 different species moved to respond. They didn't check regulations first or calculate odds. They simply prepared to help. Chen smiled. The galaxy would never be the same. The careful, predictable civilization that had existed for millennia was gone. In its place was something messier, more dangerous, but infinitely more alive. When the next crisis came, and it would come, they'd be ready. Not because they were stronger or smarter than their enemies, but because they'd learned the human secret. When someone calls for help, you answer. When the universe says impossible, you say, watch me. And when all seems lost, you remember that the galaxy's newest motto came from an old Earth saying, hold my beer and watch this. The stars beckoned, full of danger and wonder. And somewhere among them, ships crewed by the galaxy's children, human and alien alike, stood ready to do the impossible, because that's what heroes do.